Southbound 53 is heavy northwest highway to Kershaw. That's traffic. I'm Jim Elemonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center. We'll have partly sunny skies, colder, high 25. The moon out overnight is going to drop temperatures down to around 13 with clear conditions, partly sunny, very cold tomorrow, high 25. Currently 17. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Tasty Catering. The best value for your company's holiday party is at tastycatering.com.
Let freedom ring this afternoon at 2 with Sean Hannity on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We're going to talk to Justin Folk, the director of No Safe Spaces, tomorrow. But I saw it last night.
And what did you
this is the Dennis Prager, Adam Carolla film. Most of it is narrated by one of those two gentlemen. It's good. It's good. And Prager's great. It's definitely worth checking out. Most of the stories, if you listen to this show, you will be familiar with. The Brett Weinstein saga at Evergreen State, the Halloween costume imbroglio at Yale, the general mayhem anytime a conservative speaker comes to the campus of UC Berkeley, the president of, or the professor at Middlebury College who was assaulted by a student for escorting Charles Murray across campus. They're well documented, but there's some other good interplays, particularly between Prager and college students, including at historically black universities like Clark in Atlanta. It's enlightening to see that interplay. Also, some really good interviews of scholars that you're familiar with. Again, if you listen to this show, like Shelby Steele, who has just a great 60-second riff on the poisonous victimization ideology of the left, and it concludes on a high note. I'll just say.
don't tell me how it ends.
It's sort of a documentary, but
Right.
but Dennis, I'll just say this: it concludes on a high note, and do not forget that Dennis Prager is a classical music aficionado. So I'll say that. But it's definitely worth checking out. And, of course, as somebody who has been subjected to the madness on college campuses is our next guest. She is Heather McDonald, contributing editor to the City Journal, author of the bestseller, The War on Cops. She has written a recent column.
It's the best title. Why are college students so afraid of me?
It's funny because one of the fun episodes is Ben Shapiro going to UC Berkeley. And the way they juxtapose telling the story is you have $600,000 being spent for security at Berkeley in advance of Ben Shapiro's talk there. You've got, flak-jacketed, SWAT team looking like police all over the campus. You got urban assault vehicles. And so they're looking at what's going on in preparation for Ben Shapiro coming to campus. And then Ben Shapiro's sitting at the terminal in the airport. This little Jewish guy sitting, just working at his computer. Then he puts his little computer in his computer bag. Then he's just walking, he just walks into the auditorium by himself with his little computer bag in tow. I mean, it couldn't be a less threatening person. Right. And you have scrambled, forces that would normally be attached to third world dictators in preparation for his arrival at UC Berkeley. It's just a great juxtaposition the way they present it. It really points to the silliness and the, frankly, totalitarian culture on college campuses. Heather McDonald, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Dan and Amy. It's great talking with you.
So you're another very intimidating, dangerous person when you step onto a college campus like Ben Shapiro and so many others. And what did you come up with in terms of why college students are so afraid of you?
Well, I question their primary claim to self-importance at this point, which is that they are allegedly, by their own accounts, oppressed on college campuses. And if you say that, you work them into a state of absolute rage and resentment and hatred my message when I come to college campuses is that students should understand that they're the most privileged individuals in history by virtue of their unfettered access to knowledge. And the idea that they are surrounded by life-threatening racism and sexism is an absolute delusion. They're surrounded by well-meaning adults who want all of their students to succeed, and yet there's a massive part of universities today that are dedicated to the proposition that the campus itself is roiling with discrimination and oppression against, above all, minority students, and students are a willing audience for that message, and it's a dangerous message, Dan and Amy, because not only does it inhibit their ability to seize these extraordinary opportunities that they have on campuses, but many of them are going to take that delusion with them into the world at large, and we're seeing this already happen. Anti-racism is becoming the national religion. The Democratic Party keeps pumping out this completely false narrative that America is defined by white supremacy, and that's having an effect on meritocratic standards, on our ability to be colorblind and sex blind when we hire, to be able to get the best people rather than use the trivialities of race and gender to decide who should be hired and promoted. So these things have consequences.
And walk us through what happened to you at Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. You were 15 minutes in. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Words are hard today, Heather. What happened during that talk?
Well, at that point, I was talking about Renaissance humanism, which is, again, Ben Shapiro may be unthreatening. You would think that talking about Petrarch and Francois Rabelais would also be unthreatening to students. But at that point, like half the room stood up and started chanting, "My oppression is not a delusion," which is just a ridiculous.
Petrarch, how dare you? How dare you, Heather? Petrarch, that's where I draw the line.
Don't talk to me about these dead white male poets and great novelists. This is just too hard to take. So they start chanting that, and then they had a variant on the chant, which is your homophobia is not welcome. This is all directed to me. Your sexism is not welcome. Your racism is not welcome. You are not welcome, which by then I had figured out. And so this went on for a while, and eventually they filed out. Now their plan had been to they were hoping these protesters. There was days of talk and organization, and then during my talk, all their smartphones were buzzing because they were all sending each other messages for when they were going to start their protest. They'd hoped to occupy the entire auditorium so that nobody else would be able to hear me speak. When they left half of the seats empty, and there have been hundreds of people who had wanted to get in that couldn't because the auditorium was full, and for some reason the security would not let those people who'd been kept out by these protesters in. So they prevented a lot of people at Holy Cross who wanted to hear me speak from doing so. And afterwards, one of the co-organizers, who's a co-president of the Black Student Union, which was the main organizer along with student government in this, crowed that this was just such a wonderful, empowering moment, and we, were better things lie ahead, higher, even better protests and better assertions of victimhood. And this, too, is pathetic and sad that this student feels like her success is simply based on being able to, try and shut down somebody and proclaim victimhood. Here's a better way to say, I feel so empowered, and this was just, I can't believe we pulled it off. How about you study for your chemistry exam? If you really feel so oppressed, the best revenge is to whoop everybody's ass academically,
Well,
not to play the victim.
Yeah, but right. It's interesting how you describe them texting everybody, texting each other, and so on and so forth. They really do operate so many of these on college campuses like little barbarian hordes. It's like the orcs from Middle Earth. They're just wave after wave of them, and they're thoughtless, and they're just angry, and in some cases violent. And this was profiled again in that No Safe Spaces movie. A celebrated case now in Evergreen State where Brett Weinstein, who is a liberal mugged by the reality of his own students, almost literally, was told by campus police, we can't protect you. I wouldn't ride your bike down the path that you normally ride your bike to go from your home to campus. The president of the university has given us a stand-down order. We've ceded control of the university to the horde.
One wonders, Dan and Amy, at what point we should really get sort of melodramatic and hysterical about this. We are seeing signs of real fascism. Of course, the big irony is that these thugs get away with calling themselves anti-fascist, Antifa, but this use of violence is very, very dangerous, and yet we're all kind of looking the other way. But if this continues, America's traditional civil peace is really at risk, and our country. One of the things that we truly are exceptional about is the very broad protections for speech and our commitment to the idea that truth is best arrived at through competition in the marketplace of ideas, and that you have to allow people to challenge opposing ideas and make their best possible arguments, and that has been protected. But now you have students coming out into the world who don't believe in that. You have law students in the most prestigious law schools in the country, like Harvard and Yale, who believe they don't believe in due process. They believe that you believe survivors. That somebody who claims that she's a victim of sexual assault, like Christine Blasey Ford in the Brett Kavanaugh dispute, is entitled to automatic relief. If those students get on the federal bench, which they will,
yes,
the graduates of Yale and Harvard law schools, due process is over and free speech is over.
Well, that's it. The connecting of the dots. That's such an important point. And, the idea, intellectual marketplaces of ideas, free and open exchange on campus. It doesn't even matter at this point in some places whether you try to recommit to those principles because there's no ideological diversity. Celebrated computer science professor David Gerlertner recently said the political diversity at Yale is low. It's actually 0%. That's what he wrote in an email. While there are a few conservatives, including prominent ones, their numbers are not high enough to have a significant impact on campus culture. So when you've eliminated dissenters, you've eliminated dissent, and that's reinforced by both the faculty and the administrators at places like Yale, which, as you say, and this was also a point made in the movie, No Safe Spaces, these are the people that are going to be CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, deans at universities that continue to pay this forward, as well as on the bench, in public office, and the like.
Yeah, well, it's already happening. Again, look at the New York Times with this awful 1619 project, brainwashing students that America represents nothing good and only evil. Every corporation is in terror of the race and gender bean counters. I will vote against every single female who shows up on a corporate proxy ballot or mutual fund proxy ballot that I receive, because I assume that she's only there because of her sex, not because she actually knows something about, say, running a pharmaceutical company. And the pressures to get rid of colorblind hiring standards, any corporation, any law firm, any bank that is not showing proportional numbers of females and underrepresented minorities, regardless of the fact that there are massive academic achievement gaps that explain why we do not have proportional representation of underrepresented minorities. We're not allowed to say that. And instead you have pressures to hire and promote simply on the basis of race and gender. And that's happening in the sciences as well, which is where we should really be worried that we're learning that, being colorblind when it comes to engineering and physics is simply a sign of white supremacy. So we are putting our medical technology at risk. We're putting our scientific edge at risk because this diversity obsession that says that race and gender is the most important thing about an individual, that discrimination based on those characteristics defines the American experience, that is taking over. And the reality is the opposite, Dan and Amy. Again, being a female is an advantage. You're going to get enormous advantages. If you have a white male son and he's not trans or gay, woe unto him, because he is going to have a much harder time getting admitted to competitive schools and getting hired on a job, because unless we can stop this diversity obsession and delusion, he's going to be a pariah for the rest of his life.
She is Heather McDonald, contributing editor for City Journal, author of the bestseller, The War on Cops. Check out her recent piece at City Journal, Why Are College Students So Afraid of Me? Heather McDonald, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan and Amy.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
What's the easiest way to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables? Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature is the quickest and easiest way to consume several different sources of clean energy from the sun. By simply removing the water and air, Balance of Nature can take 31 whole fruits and vegetables and put them into quick and easy-to-eat capsules. With just 3 fruit capsules and 3 veggie capsules, you get the equivalent of over 10 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. That's a lot of stored energy that your body will love. So if you are looking for an easier way to get clean energy, go to balanceofnature.com and order your bottles of sunshine today.
Call or go online now and become a preferred customer, which gives you our best pricing and free shipping. And we will take an additional 25% off of your first order. Plus, get a set of convenient travel bottles containing a free additional week's supply of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.